In the heart of the Judean desert, perched atop a colossal, isolated rock plateau, stands the fortress of Masada. Its sheer cliffs rise over 1,000 feet above the Dead Sea, a seemingly impenetrable bastion against any foe. For years, it was the final refuge for a small band of Jewish rebels, a symbol of defiance against the mightiest empire the world had ever known. But in the year 73 AD, the impossible happened. The Roman 10th Legion, masters of siege warfare, arrived at its base. What followed was not just a battle, but an epic struggle of ingenuity, desperation, and will. This is the story of one of history's most astonishing sieges, a tale of how an army moved a mountain to conquer a fortress, and the tragic, defiant choice made by those who called it their last home. The story of Masada truly begins decades earlier, with one of history's most ambitious and controversial rulers, Herod the Great. Long before it became a rebel stronghold, Herod transformed this natural fortress into a palatial retreat. He envisioned Masada as his ultimate safe house, a place to flee in case of a revolt from his own subjects. He constructed 2 lavish palaces, complete with beautiful mosaic floors, frescoed walls, and even a Roman-style bathhouse. Ingenious water systems, a series of massive cisterns cut deep into the rock, collected and stored millions of gallons of winter rainwater, ensuring survival in the arid desert. He also built a formidable wall around the entire plateau, punctuated by 30 defensive towers. When Herod died, Masada stood as a monument to his power and his paranoia, a luxurious fortress waiting for a war. That war came in 66 AD. Decades of simmering resentment against Roman rule boiled over into a full-scale rebellion known as the Great Jewish Revolt. Across Judea, Roman garrisons were overrun. In the chaos, a group of Jewish rebels, known as the Sicarii, seized the light-offended fortress of Masada. For the next few years, as the war raged across the land and Jerusalem itself was besieged and ultimately destroyed in 70 AD, Masada remained a lone pocket of resistance. Led by Eleazar ben Yair, a community of nearly 1,000 men, women, and children made the fortress their home. They had Herod's massive storehouses of food, almost endless supply of water, and weapons captured from the former Roman garrison. From their untouchable perch, they were the last free people of Judea. But the Roman Empire did not tolerate loose ends. For Rome, the continued existence of this rebel outpost was an intolerable affront to its authority. And so, in 72 AD, the Roman governor, Lucius Flavius Suva, marched to the famed Legio X, Fretensis Sue, 10th Legion to the foot of Masada. Silva was a seasoned commander, and his legion was a force of about 8,000 elite soldiers, supplemented by thousands of auxiliaries and prisoners of war forced into labor. Looking up at the sheer cliffs, Silva knew a direct assault was suicide. The rebels on top could simply drop rocks on any climbing party. A long-term siege, starving them out, was also problematic. He knew they had vast supplies. Silva needed a different plan, a Roman plan. One built on engineering, relentless effort, and overwhelming force. His strategy was as audacious as it was brilliant. First, he would ensure no one could escape. His men constructed a massive wall of circumvallation, a stone barrier, 8 feet high and nearly 7 miles long, encircling the entire base of Masada. Dotted with fortified camps and towers, this siege wall, known as the Dike, completely sealed the rebels in. For the Sicarii looking down, it was a terrifying sight. A stone prison being built around their fortress home. A clear message that Rome was not leaving. What the defenders contained, Silva turned his attention to the main problem: how to get his army to the top. He identified a weak point. On the western side of Masada, a large white spur of rock jutted out, offering a slightly less vertical approach. This would be the foundation for his masterwork. Silva ordered his men to build a ramp. Not just any ramp, but a colossal earthen siege ramp. For months, under the scorching desert sun, thousands of legionaries and prisoners worked tirelessly. They moved earth, rock, and timber, slowly, painstakingly building a ramp that would climb the side of the mountain. It's estimated they moved over 7 million cubic feet of material. From the top of Masada, Eleazar and his followers could only watch in growing horror as this artificial mountain grew closer and closer to their walls. Day by day, foot by foot. It was the physical embodiment of Roman resolve, a slow-moving, unstoppable wave of earth and stone. As the ramp neared the top, the Romans constructed a massive siege tower on its platform, a 90-foot-tall, iron-plated behemoth. Inside this mobile fortress, protected from the defenders' projectiles, were catapults and archers. But its main weapon was a giant battering ram. Finally, the day came. The tower was pushed up the completed ramp, its top level with Masada's wall. The battering ram began its rhythmic, thunderous assault. The defenders fought back desperately, hurling stones and flaming torches, but the tower's iron plating protected the Romans within. Soon, the inevitable happened. A section of Herod's magnificent wall crumbled. The Romans had breached the fortress. However, the rebels had one last surprise. Behind the broken stone wall, they had built a second, inner wall, made of wood and earth. When the Roman ram struck it, instead of shattering, the soft earth simply absorbed the impact, making it even more compact and stronger. Frustrated, Silva changed tactics. He ordered his men to hurl flaming torches at the new wall. At first, the wind blew the flames back towards the Romans, and the defenders cheered. But then, as the historian Josephus recounts, the wind suddenly shifted, blowing the fire directly into the wooden wall, which quickly caught ablaze. The last line of defense was gone. Victory was now certain for the Romans. Silva, confident the battle was won, pulled his troops back, planning to storm the fortress at dawn. That night, inside Masada, Eleazar Benyar gathered his people. He knew what the morning would bring. For the men, crucifixion or the mines. For the women and children, a life of slavery and degradation. Paraded through the streets of Rome, looking at the faces of his community, he delivered a series of powerful speeches. He reminded them of their vow to serve no one but God, never to be slaves to the Romans or any other man. He argued that it was better to die free, by their own hands, than to suffer the humiliation of capture. It was a terrible, agonizing choice. According to Josephus, they chose death over slavery. They systematically destroyed their possessions, everything except the food stores, to show the Romans they were not driven by desperation, but by principle. Then, 10 men were chosen by lot to carry out the grim task. They went from family to family, and in one final, heartbreaking act, each husband and father embraced his wife and children before they were killed. After all, the families were gone. The 10 men drew lots again. One was chosen to execute the other 9, and then, as the last man standing, he was to set the palaces ablaze before taking his own life. The next morning, the Romans stormed the fortress, expecting a final, bloody fight. Instead, they were met with an eerie, deathly silence. Cautiously, they advanced through the breached wall, into the courtyards and palaces. What they found was not a scene of battle, but a scene of orderly, silent death. All 960 inhabitants were gone. Only 2 women and 5 children, who had hidden in one of the water cisterns, survived to tell the Romans what had happened. They were, Josephus writes, astonished not by their enemies' defeat, but by the contempt for death they had shown. Today, you can walk the sun-baked summit of Masada. You can see the ruins of Herod's palaces, the synagogue where the rebels prayed, and the black line on the stones marking the Roman siege wall. And you can stand on the western edge and look down at the still visible ramp, a pale scar on the mountainside, a permanent testament to the epic struggle that took place here. The story of Masada is complex and controversial, but it remains one of the most powerful tales of human history, a story of a clash of empires, incredible engineering, and a final, desperate act of defiance that has echoed through the ages. Thanks for watching, and as always, keep seeking the stories that shaped our world. If you found this story as fascinating as we do, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more journeys into the past.